Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Marco and me, except it's not Marco and me today. It's Mina, Marco, and me. And we have a hookup between Kona, where Marco is, and Kauai, where Mina is. Mina Morita, the former chair of the PUC. So welcome to the show, Mina.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great to have you here with us. And Marco, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much, Jay, and it's great that we are, for the first time, spanning the length of the state. I am here in Hilo, and you're in Oahu, and Mina is on Kauai. So, could we ask for a greater span across our beautiful Hawaiian Islands on this Monday?
Amen to that. It's great that this is like a global span we have here. It really touches me.
The miracles of technology.
Really. Well, and to have the two of you on at the same time in any event, span or otherwise, is terrific. We have much to talk about, and we have some very interesting topics. I guess the title of our show today is Current Developments in Energy. But boy, we have a lot of current developments going on. Let me just identify the things we hope to talk about. A review of the feed-in tariff, where it is, and how it's doing. The consumer advocates' position on the merger, the NextEra merger, and the conditions that the consumer advocate has suggested for the approval of that merger, which are very demanding. And we have the Asia-Pacific Clean Energy Summit, which is happening on Monday. And in fact, the three of us are going to be together on the DER panel, Distributed Energy Resources panel. And that's going to be really interesting, and we can sort of give you a preview of that panel. And then we're going to talk about LNG and what's going on, and the contention about who exactly should do it going forward, and see who we can, sort of educate people about what's happening. So that's a very ambitious list of subjects. Let me lead off with you, Marco. What about FIT? What about the feed-in tariff? Where is it, and where has it been? Where is it going?
Well, what caught my attention this past week, Jay, was a piece by Dwayne Shimagawa in the Pacific Business News announcing as much as close to 7 megawatts, actually 6.75 megawatts, planned to go in the Ocean View area. And Ocean View is in the Kau region, south point of the Big Island. And this brought to mind, kind of review in my own mind, what's been going on with the Feed-in Tariff Program, which actually was formally brought to a close, if I'm not mistaken, October of 2013, as far as no additional applicants, no additional new systems being accepted. And what kind of struck me was that despite the good intentions of a lot of people in developing the feed-in tariff for roughly, my recollection tells me, 2 to 3 years prior to the launch, December of 2011, despite all those great intentions, it turned out to be far less beneficial than it had the promise to be. And what I'm specifically struck by is that in this particular case of these proposed 27 separate projects in the 250 kW range per project, that they are essentially offering HECO power, megawatts worth of solar power, where they need it the least. In other words, where the demand is low, and it's going to be requiring close to $2 million worth of upgrades. Now, those upgrades are supposed to be paid for by the developers, and not supposed to come out of HECO's pocket or the ratepayers' pocket, but a substantial sum nonetheless. And what I also found striking is that the feed-in tariff rate, in other words, paid to the developer, the owner of the system, over, if I'm not mistaken, 20 years, is essentially providing a super premium price to these system owners for these systems up to 250 kilowatts. And what I'm talking about specifically are kilowatt-hour pricing for these solar kilowatt hours, anywhere from 18.9 cents a kilowatt hour for as long as 20 years, or if they choose to receive less in terms of the state tax credit, get 24.5% rebate or refund rather than 35% state tax credit, it could go up to as much as 23.8 cents a kilowatt hour. So what's striking about that, and this is lamentable, I guess is a good word, is that these particular projects are going to garner the owners of these projects super premium pricing, which is really going to be paid for by all of us. And the disappointing thing is that there are cheaper forms of solar power out there in terms of utility scale solar that utilities can do PPAs for at substantially less than 18.9 cents or 23.8 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow, that's an interesting report. And now what is that? That's on the feed-in tariff? Is that what you're saying, or this is just a power purchase agreement?
The feed-in tariff is essentially a power purchase agreement between HECO, HELCO, and MECO. In this case, it's HELCO, where they are paying the owner of the system for all the solar kilowatt hours produced at a essentially guaranteed rate, depending on the system size. In this case, up to 250 kilowatts, where, as I said, it'll be for as long as 20 years at getting either 18.9 cents a kilowatt hour for those solar kilowatt hours, or as much as 23.8 cents, depending on what the basis of the state tax credit is.
So, Mina, you have comments or thoughts about this?
Well, I think this shows what can happen to an early adoption policy. Again, you know, a policy was made to establish a kind of a floor for distributed generation back starting in 2008. And again, how quickly those kinds of policies can become economically detrimental.
Yeah.
You know, when you're dealing with advancing technologies, drop in pricing, you know, because, you know, right at that time, solar prices started dropping. And, you know, so you basically have a regulatory system that trying to establish a market, but can't react quick enough to market changes.
Yeah, there it is. I mean, this is a moving target. And you set up one system, and certainly you're going to find that out of every X systems you set up, a couple of them are going to be overtaken by events. This isn't overtaken by the market, overtaken by events. And I guess it shows you not only that feed-in tariff can be overtaken by events, but other things too. And I think, don't you think we have to feel free sometimes to cut some of these programs loose and let them go and accept that they've been overtaken by events. Don't you think so? I mean, I think we have to be flexible about that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, again, these projects were meant to be shovel-ready, meaning once they get approval, they're supposed to start building, but a lot of it has sat. There are a lot of administrative problems, lots of, you know, there are some bad actors that try to fill up the queue with projects that weren't ready.
Yeah.
And profit off of that.
Yeah.
And so there are lots of respect.
So what's the status of this right now, Marco? Is this a done deal, or has it been approved? Has it been? Is it before the PUC? Where is it?
Well, it needs to go before the PUC for their approval, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to take some time, and I mean there's clearly a crunch in terms of timing as far as getting projects operational by the end of next year. This is assuming that the federal investment tax credit for commercial goes down from 30 to 10% as it's scheduled to do, and it would disappear entirely for residential PV. And while there are efforts on the part of the solar industry to extend the tax credit beyond its expiration on January 1st, 2017. I think, given the makeup of our Congress these days, obviously Republican majority in both House and the Senate, I think it's kind of a long shot that we're going to see that extension. So the long and the short being is that these commercial projects, which have substantial lead times and need substantial approval on multiple levels, we're really getting to that crunch time. And just kind of another point of fact is that there are precedents out there, although this would be seen as very, very disturbing news to the project developers. There are precedents where a feed-in tariff has been actually reduced by a new government or a new administration or new policymakers. In other words, to go back retroactively and make adjustments to prior tariff rates that are seen as either impractical or too onerous on the state or too onerous on the utility company. Now, that would be fought tooth and nail by the project developers, but it's not unprecedented that feed-in tariffs have changed in other areas.
Well, if we three were the Public Utilities Commission, it doesn't seem like we would actually approve this. We would say it's too expensive. That may leave these people without the benefit of renewable energy in that area. Am I right?
No. So, I mean, my understanding is that as long as they meet the conditions of the STIP program, I mean, they're in. As long as they meet all of the conditions on all of the milestones, these projects are pretty much deemed approved.
So this is likely to be approved on an automatic basis because of the continuing existence of the program.
Yeah, and it was a pilot program, and they did remove the reserve queue. The reserve queues were for projects to step in once if the approved projects couldn't meet milestones. But the reserve queue, it's called an active queue.
Well, Marco, sorry.
So the active queue was intended to be shovel-ready. And if those projects were not shovel-ready, then they would be kicked out, and then they would take projects from the reserve queue. My understanding is the reserve queue has been eliminated. They are only moving forward with projects in the active queue. But if those projects couldn't meet milestones, then that was it.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Closing words on this. We're gonna move to another subject in a minute. So let me ask you guys to shift with me to the next subject in our agenda here today, and that is the consumer advocate's position on the merger. He came out with 500 pages of position on this, and it was all for the proposition that the merger should be denied. But I guess he interposed some conditions, and I guess we all knew that he would. But the conditions are pretty tough, and I guess the thought is if NextEra can meet the conditions, then he would not oppose it. But short of that, he would oppose it. What kind of conditions are we talking about?
Well, they're really quite stunning, in my opinion, Jay. There are 17 pages of them, and it is nothing less than a monumental effort to essentially, in corporate engineering, and as far as turning Hawaiian Electric Holdings, which would be the follow-on company from HEI, turning it into a completely different animal out here, including turning it into a B corporation. And a B corporation is actually a corporation which is much more socially responsible and has a lot more criteria and requirements to meet in terms of proving their bona fides as far as looking after the community, looking after its employees, looking after the environment. And Mina may have an example or two, but I can't think of any utility company in the whole country which is a B Corp. But if they are out there, there are very, very few of them. So the conditions are, like I said, stunning. And it's going to be very interesting to see how NextEra addresses those, the whole testimony in its rebuttal, which is due no later than 2 weeks from today, on the 31st of August.
Yeah.
So I think you can look at those conditions as almost all of them. I'm going to channel my friends in Juneau Beach for a moment. Almost all of them, I would think, are seen as non-starters.
I mean, that NextEra would not want to accede to those conditions.
No, I don't think so.
Well, if that becomes, an official statement of acceptance, then probably it sounds like from what you say it would kill the deal. Mina, what do you think? Any reaction to that?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, the local government issue is huge, and so where the holding company is situated, how it's formed is, I think, a major issue. And there is one utility that is a B Corp, Green Mountain Power in Vermont. And I believe they became a B Corp in December. But my feeling is public utilities are essentially B Corps because they have to provide, they're providing a service for public good. So I think, when you're looking at the B Corp model, they are kind of de facto, public utilities are de facto B Corps. And I think what the B Corp model offers is a way to provide metrics on how the company is performing socially and environmentally.
Mm. Well, it sounds like this goes to the discussion around changing the way utilities work, changing how they're organized, changing, the profit motive even. The B Corp is, supposed to be a profit motive with community considerations, different from an ordinary C Corp or an LLC and all that. And you wonder whether, if imposed by the PUC, assuming NextEra doesn't like it, which I will assume, whether they will take it to court. I mean, it could be something outside our experience in American utility law. It could be something that they would like to test in the federal court somewhere. Any discussion of that? Any possibility of that?
Yeah, I don't know, Jay. And I actually was going to ask Mina whether she thought it would be, if she were to channel Juneau Beach NextEra, whether she thinks there's going to be much consideration of the proposal to turn the follow-on holding company into a B Corp. Do you think that that's in the realm of possibilities, Mina?
It depends on how bad they want C Corp.
They have to want it real bad.
I mean, I think, again, it's been made clear that, the Hawaiian electric companies have a huge role within our communities. And, it comes down to metrics. How do you measure their investment in the workforce, in their investment, their social and environmental investment in Hawaii? A lot of times these are kind of intangible. We talk about it a lot. We talk about, charitable giving, community involvement, but how do you measure these things?
You're right. It's very subjective.
Yeah. And so I think, looking at that B Corp model is one way of measuring, having, making it a little bit more tangible.
Yeah.
But, if you look overall, this is the kind of trend that's happening in socially responsible investment. We have major institutions wanting to make these kinds of investments, like the University of Hawaii, in their stock portfolio. So, how do you measure this performance?
Yeah.
So it's not only, in this application, but I think it's something that's happening everywhere.
Well, it certainly opens new possibilities for Hawaii, and it actually deals with some of the concerns expressed about NextEra being a hard-nosed profit corporation. Whether that's true or not, this would, as you say, Mina, this would allow an examination of it. So let's move on again, but first we're going to take a break. Then we're going to move on to the APCES. We're going to talk about the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit, which is just next week, and we'll talk about our DER panel just to get the flavor of it, so maybe people will come and see it. So this is ThinkTech. We're going to take a short break. We're here with Mina Morita and Marco Manglesdorf, talking about current developments in energy. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
We're back, we're live, we're here in our bi-weekly show, Marco and me, but today it's Mina, Marco, and me, and we're talking about current developments in energy, and I'm delighted to have you guys on the show, especially now, a week away from the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit at the Convention Center, a big deal every year, and I think there'll be a lot of people there, and you guys are on a panel about distributed energy resources, and I'm moderating that panel, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that. So, Marco, why don't you lead off on this and tell us a little about what DER is and what this panel is going to cover.
Well, I can say a few words about what DER is. I think I'll leave it to you to kind of give the broader overview. I mean, distributed energy resources essentially is kind of similar to the phrase distributed generation, where instead of what has been a tradition going back since the days of Edison, where you've had central power generation, big power plants typically, and carrying that power, sending that power hundreds if not thousands of miles in multiple directions through power lines, transmission, distribution. The evolution has been since the advent of solar, essentially solar PV over the past 10 to 15 years, to be able to have, instead of big power plants, a few of them sending power far and wide, you have a lot more power plants, many more power plants, mini power plants on people's homes and businesses. So it is a fundamental transformation, really, of the utility grid of our ancestors, so to speak, to go from centralized generation and sending power far and wide to generation taking place on the micro level on people's roofs, and that presents substantial challenges, not just to the utilities, but in terms of regulatory issues, political matters and questions to be discussed, tax policy. I mean, there's a huge range of aspects of how we live our lives that are affected by decisions like this. And most proximately, some of the things we're dealing with now in terms of under the Distributed Energy Resources rubric and docket, which is before the PUC right now, is the fate of net energy metering, which has been around since July of 2001, has been just fantastically successful across the state over the past 14 or so years, and has led to something close to 70,000 homeowners and business owners being able to have these individual really cool power plants on their
That goes to my
roof.
point about, sometimes policies need to change. Sometimes you have a policy that you have to move away from, move on from. And in fact, you two guys did an op-ed piece on this very point a few weeks ago for I guess it was the Star Advertiser, on the question of dropping the net energy metering program. Mina, can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, one of the most important dockets besides the merger docket before the PUC is this Distributed Energy Resources investigation.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to point out that in the staff report, they have a definition for DER, and so it says it refers to technology and other resources typically located at a customer's premises, which may be designed to serve all or part of a customer's load power supply to their distribution system, provide grid support functions, or a combination of these or other services. DER includes distributed generation, demand response, energy storage, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency. So I think when most people think about DER, they think about DG, the generation part. But there are other services associated with DER that we didn't forget about. Now, what about subsidies?
Big question.
Well, I think, again, it's first of all, how you unbundle all of these services, and then how you correctly price these services.
This is hard. So, let me turn it around on you. How do we do that? And who does it?
This is what this investigation is all about.
Well, I hope we can solve these problems in an hour and a half on our panel. But I would try to make a run at it and at least hit all the issues, and actually try to come up with some recommendations to the powers that be on exactly what step to put forward first. This will be a very interesting panel because we have a good group, very familiar with the issues you've been talking about, that could make recommendations that could cast a long shadow. I believe that this panel is very important. This is where the action is. We've been ramped up to this, Mina, during your administration on the PUC. It was heading in this direction, and now we're kind of at a crossroads to deal with it. And this panel is very, very timely, especially in view of the issue about net energy metering. Very timely to kind of find our direction, find the next Ahu, if you will, and move in that direction. So I think this. Yeah, go ahead.
This is the paradigm shift. Before, you would generate electricity to just match the demand. Now, what you're trying to do is move the demand to when resources are available. So that's a huge paradigm shift.
Yeah. Well, I hope we can solve the problem. So, Marco, what do you think is going to come up in this panel? I mean, what kinds of things will we be batting back and forth?
Well, what are the tangible next steps as the challenges that are staring us right in the face, which include what to do about net energy metering in the HECO, HELCO, and MECO territories? And just as a reminder to everybody, net energy metering has not been available on Kauai now for, gosh, how long has it been? 4, 5, 6 years. Mm-hmm. And the PV industry just didn't shrivel up and die over there. So talk about the sky falling and the world coming to an end if NEM is discontinued across the rest of the state, I don't think holds much water. So we've got NEM staring us in the face, and also the really substantial challenge of what to do with too much PV power on a both per circuit basis and also system-wide issues, which are apparent in places like Molokai, that is a small grid, one single power plant, and the highest penetration on a percentage basis of net energy meter systems on that little island compared to anywhere else in the state.
Yeah, so we've had the interconnect problem, you know, emerging and then getting very controversial and angry, causing all kinds of controversy in the past couple of years. And this panel, it's this, I shouldn't say the only issue, but it is a central issue in this panel to try to figure out what to do with it and how to avoid it going forward. And then to wrap around, you know, you were suggesting, Mina, that there are a lot of factors coming into play here, and one of them is the new technology. You know, for example, 2 weeks ago, what do you call it, Blue Planet Energy was established to sell these Sony high-tech batteries that last 20 years. That you can put, you know, an array of these batteries in your home and really get off the grid, they say, with this device. And so we have new technology, that and the other one, I can't remember his name right now, the Israeli, making the batteries in California. So we have all kinds of new technology coming in that will affect the relationship of the pieces in the grid, the interconnect issue, and who provides renewables from where, with what storage, with what smart grid equipment. It's all in flux, and it's all in this panel. Wow, what a panel.
Well, and at what cost, Jay? At what
Thank
cost?
You. And who pays the cost?
and who, you know, who is benefiting the most? Is it a small subset of the population, as in PV contractors like myself and the money behind us, and mainland companies based in California? Are they the primary beneficiaries, or are there going to be benefits more spread out amongst the population at large? And that's, of course, one of the main criticisms of NEM over the years, is that you've got 88% of the folks in the state who don't have NEM who are effectively, to some degree, subsidizing the 12% of people who do have it. So it's really it's a political and kind of social justice question as well. It's not just tech and capacities of grids and battery storage and all kinds of other high-tech gizmos. I mean, it goes to basic fairness and basic equity in terms of who's benefiting the most and who should be paying for it.
Well, Mina, why don't you close on this issue, and then we'll move to our last issue for the program.
Yeah, I think people have to understand the grid as a public infrastructure and the public good that it provides. And so what you need is fairness on the grid, a managed transition, and right pricing signals. I think we can look to KIUC and see that, you know, they don't have the circuit level penetrations that are happening on the other islands, and primarily because you know, they've been real clear on what are the rules to interconnect, and they don't promote overbuilding of a system. And then the other thing is they strategically place batteries. So, you know, they have a huge solar penetration, but they don't have the kinds of problems that are being faced on the other islands. And it's just because I believe they have a well-managed transition plan in place. They make it available, but they make it available with.
Well, you know, one of the issues that's inherent in all of this, it seems to me, is the speed at which we make decisions, the speed at which, you know, the utility makes decisions, the speed at which the consumer advocate moves, and the speed at which the PUC moves. And if we have all of these vectors and factors and variables all feeding into a decision process, don't you agree that we need to find a way to move faster?
It's not necessarily moving faster, it's moving smarter.
Okay. All right, we'll take a break now, and right after this break, we're going to come back and we'll talk about LNG and where it fits and how it looks like it's going to settle down, what the issues are, and we can do that in 5 minutes, right? We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Aloha, welcome to ThinkTech Hawaii. My name is Josh Green. I'm the host of a program called Aloha, welcome to ThinkTech Hawaii. My name is Josh Green. I'm the host of a program called Healthcare in Hawaii. I'm a physician. I work in the emergency department on the Big Island. I also serve in the state senate, which, please don't hold that against me, doesn't detract from my television program. We speak about all the big healthcare issues in the state. We get together on Tuesdays from 2 o'clock till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we try to talk about the most important issues in healthcare. This is a terrific venue for people to learn about healthcare. There are many programs on this station. We broadcast it later, not just on the internet, but also on OC16. Thanks for joining us. Please be informed healthcare consumers.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Mina Morita, Marco Manglesdorf, and me. And Marco, during the break, you mentioned that you'd like to make a point about how all this works. Go for it.
Yeah, which is simply my observation, my realization that this particular commission, which is trying to do the best job they can in terms of looking out for what's best for the state writ large, on both in terms of energy and telecom and other regulated monopolies, essentially, is that we have not one, not two, not three, not four, but actually 5 pretty monumental dockets, energy dockets before them, including the one I put in the first position would be the merger docket between NextEra and HEI, and then the DER docket, Distributed Energy Resources, the Power Supply Improvement Plan, which is going to dictate how utilities will be developing their power supplies over the years and decades to come, Demand Response docket, which is trying to shift, as I understand it, consumption from latter part of the day to earlier part of the day in order to take advantage of renewables in a better fashion, and then decoupling. So how this commission decides these 5 dockets in the months and year or so to come is going to have a huge impact on our present and on our future here in Hawaii, energy-wise, for years.
Yes, and of course, and as Mina said, we have to make smart decisions, not necessarily quick decisions. But somehow, as you describe all of that, all of those dockets are related to all of the other dockets.
Yeah.
And you wonder about the docket system, why it's all separated. That why can't it be in the same docket? All these issues.
That'd be a great question for Mina.
Yeah.
I think, during my period there, we tried to consolidate as much as possible the various dockets that were happening. And I personally think that, it's divided into these, what did you say, Marco, 5 main areas, because that was the most feasible way of breaking it down and handling it. Otherwise, it would just become too unwieldy and moving forward. When we think about interveners, the issues, and
it's true. I mean, we're reinventing a lot of things here, and there's a lot of stakeholders involved. There's a lot of high feelings and high risk and high investment and all that. So whatever we do, we have to make it a process that satisfies all those considerations.
I mean, if you look at New York, the grant, reinventing or reinventing the energy vision, I think that's the title of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think in that they had hundreds of interveners, stakeholders in that one.
Oh my goodness. There must be a way we can we can employ high-tech communication systems and get through it. Otherwise, you know, it's that process we talked about at the beginning of the show. Otherwise, what will happen is before we settle it down, it'll be overtaken by events. And then, you know, that's very inefficient. Let's move to the last issue. We only have a moment. Mina, what are your thoughts about LNG? Where does LNG fit in the DER?
I think LNG can facilitate DER. You're looking for a flexible generation that can match renewable sources intermittency. So, you're basically looking at what kind of clean generators, efficient generators you can bring on board to have that match. So I think it's very important, and I think the state itself has to take a stronger role in directing the LNG discussion because it impacts the unregulated sector of energy, the transportation, both the ground transportation, marine transportation, and maybe even jet fuel. So there has to be a real coordinated effort on the state's part.
Yeah, it could be very important for us going forward. Marco, we're almost out of time, but let me let you talk about exactly who would do it and what process we would use to decide who would do it and what controversy we might have getting there.
As far as greater LNG use in the state?
Yeah, I mean, clearly from what Mina says, and I agree that LNG can sort of ride together with storage. In fact, it's a lot cheaper than storage in order to balance the load. So there's clearly a place for it in DER and in transportation, and maybe a sort of a common denominator for things going forward. But the question is, you know, who brings it in, who processes it, how are we going to invent or reinvent the way we deal with this new fuel?
Well, I'm truly of a mixed mind on this subject, Jay, and I kind of go back and forth between my friend Jeff Nicolina and his position with the Blue Planet in terms of, you know, LNG is just kind of stopping us from going to where we really need to go in the first place. And does it make sense to essentially swap one fossil fuel for another, even though it has the perception of being cleaner and cheaper perhaps for the time being? But I mean, look at the price of oil. I mean, with more Iranian oil coming on the market, this even before the Iranian oils come on the market in any great increase, you know, it is trading somewhere in the low 40s right now. And how long is that going to last? I mean, it's just, doesn't make sense conceptually, politically, economically for the state to start going down the LNG path when perhaps that time and energy and effort and resources should be better spent on doubling down on more renewables. I'm a mixed mind on that.
And you know, somehow that all fits within our DER panel. I'm sorry, Mina, you were going to say?
Yeah, no, and that's why I think it has to be looked at from a state perspective, you know, because we have aging refineries that need to be upgraded, you know, and that factors in to which direction we're going to move. You know, you look at Chevron shopping around for buyers. You look at the Tesoro that just sold recently. You know, all of these factor into the LNG decision too. And then, you know, you have to look at your transportation fuels and how they are affected, or how LNG can play a role.
Well, the job's not yet done, but I do feel that a lot of these issues have a place in our committee next Monday at APCES, and I hope people come down to hear how you guys handle it and what kind of suggestions you make, and we're going to ask questions of the attendees and see what their thoughts are on some of these issues, so it'll be very interesting. We are at a confluence. I always say that, and it's always true, and we're still there, and it hasn't ended, and we'll be at a confluence for a while. But one of these days we'll get it sorted out, and my own view is we'll get it sorted out long before 2045. Anyway, thank you very much, Mina Morita, Marco Manglesdorf. Thanks for joining the Marco and Me program, Mina. We We're going to have you on more often, actually. We love straddling the state this way. And we'll see you guys next Monday at the APCES.
Thank you, Jim. I'm all in favor of expanding it to Marco, Mina, and me. I think that's just got an incredibly wonderful ring to it. So here, and there, and thanks so much.
I am too. Thank you, Mina Morita.
I got to click off that picture.
Yeah, okay. We'll fix that. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thank you.